So we're going to talk about mentors today. And I guess in my opinion, or a way I've always viewed it, a mentor has to be a teacher, but more often, or more importantly, you can't be a teacher unless he's someone you respect. Is that something you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, they take an interest in you, but you have to realize that interest is genuine, and you have to trust the guidance that they're going to give you, that they're looking out for your best interest.
Do you think that mentors, where, I mean, if it's a teacher, you're in a classroom, you know he's a teacher. Are people mentors without knowing they're being mentors?
Yeah, I think sometimes that happens. I think they just take an interest in somebody and want to help them grow, and they begin to do that. And they may not realize they're a mentor to that person, but that person usually recognizes it at some point.
At some point. So you've had 3 mentors that we talked about. Let's kind of go down through those. And
Okay.
one that I knew very well, Dick Raddick
Yeah.
at the police department. Just so the audience knows, when I was a young reporter at the Columbus Dispatch, Kent was on the accident investigation squad, and one of your fellow officers was a guy named Dick Raddick.
Right.
And
Right.
you told me Dick was one of your mentors.
Yeah, he really was the first one with the police department. I met Dick before I got on the police department. He was my next door neighbor, and at the time I was going through the academy to become a reserve officer, which reserve officers ride with regular officers to gain experience. So Dick took me on as his partner, so to speak.
Okay.
Learned a lot about just how to do policing the right way, how to be professional, some do's and don'ts. Then after I got on full time, Dick was then in the accident investigation squad, and they had an opening, and he thought that I'd be good for that job, so he got me into that job way before I would have normally got in. And again, coached me and mentored me and helped me become a good detective.
Talk a little bit about, because you said he was a good cop, the do's and don'ts.
Right.
When you were riding with him, what did you learn?
Well, a number of different things. You know, he would talk about how to make a traffic stop so they're not likely to run. You know, if you start the traffic stop too far back, they think they've got a chance to get away, and they take off. And how to approach the car, and how to be professional when you approach the car. What to do if somebody gets out of the car, those kinds of things. A lot of officer safety tips when we were going on runs, you know, to make sure you stand beside the door when you knock on the door in case they shoot through the door. Mm-hmm. Just some basic things that you need to know. Very good tip. I still do that, by the way.
And so he was constantly teaching.
Right.
Even though he might not have understood at the time how important it was to you.
Absolutely.
You were absorbing that.
Absolutely. And I think he did know it was important. I mean, I'm a young guy. I just got out of the academy, and he's been doing it for years, you know, and it's part of town that's busy and has a lot of crime. And so I think he realized that I needed that help, and I should have appreciated it.
Sure. Then you had another guy that we talked about, which was Marv Muncie.
Right. So Marv was a traffic control sergeant, was the downtown walking and motorcycle squad. Marv would come up occasionally to the traffic bureau, to the accident investigation squad, and talk with me and talk with some of the other people. And I guess he took a liking to me. He knew that I was a hard worker and that I was professional. And so one day he approached me and said, "I'd like you to come down and work for me." And again, normally with my low seniority, that would have never happened. But I remember one of the first things he told me. He says, "You know, Kent," he says, "if you come down here to work, you got to remember what got you here has to keep you here. In other words, you're here because you're a hard worker and you're a professional. You got to keep doing it or you can't stay."
Okay.
Good lesson, you know. And he again just mentored me with good advice. But one of the things he did for me was open some doors. He got me involved in some projects with some of the higher up in the police department, to the point where I was helping set up motorcades, and I got to ride in presidential and vice presidential motorcades. But one of the things he's did that's been a lifelong blessing to me is he had some small special duty businesses, and he spun one of those off to me. And at the time, it was just providing a small amount of income. I've since grown that into a full-time consulting business. And so now that I'm retired, it's a major source of income and a major source of enjoyment for me that I never would have had it not been for Marv Muncie. And I would have never met Marv Muncie had it not been for Dick Raddick.
It just runs right up the chain.
Yeah.
But you took advantage of the wealth of knowledge, I guess, that these two guys both could
Absolutely. You know, I
provide.
think everybody needs that in their careers and in their life. You know, you just can't possibly know all the things that you need to know or have all the connections you need to have. And so people that'll open those doors for you, that'll not only teach you, but provide opportunities, provide connections, help you grow, yeah, and that believe in you. I think everybody needs that, and my mentors did that for me.
And the third one was Ron Huff.
Ron Huff was a professor at Ohio State University in the Criminal Justice Department. He had just started studying gangs in Ohio, At the same time, the city recognized they had a gang problem and created a gang unit that I was the sergeant in charge of. So Ron contacted me and he goes, I'm Ron Huff with the House State University. I'm studying gangs, but I'd really like to learn from you guys what you're doing and what you know about gangs. So here's this esteemed professor wanting to learn from us, and we were learning as we go. And it started off mostly professional. We shared ideas and information. He would come out and ride with us, but over time we got to be friends, and he started encouraging me to come out with him and speak when he would go out and give talks on gangs, because he felt it was important to have a police practitioner's perspective along with the academic side. Before long, we were traveling all over the country, attending the major academic organizations like American Society for Criminology and Academy for Criminal Justice Science, organizations that I never would have probably been a part of.
Right.
He encouraged me to go back to school and get more other degrees, which I did. So he was not only a great friend and a great mentor, but he really opened a lot of doors for me and led me to places that I'm glad I went, but I probably never would have gone without him.
So conversely, have you mentored people, or have you? I know you have a son, and there's always that special relationship, but beyond that, have you tried to, I guess, pay back or pay forward, whichever one?
Absolutely, because you do try to mentor your kids, but one thing to keep in mind is that they need more than just their parents, and that's where those professional mentors are really helpful to them. I hope for both of my kids when they're out there in the workforce that people are going to see their skills and ability and take it upon themselves to mentor them. But one of the things that I tried to do, especially as I rose through the ranks, is again identify those people that really had a lot going for them and help them take advantage of all the opportunities that were there in the police department. Not only sharing with them things that I've learned, but again trying to open some doors for them, trying to make some connections for them.
Sure.
And I think it was appreciated when I retired. I got a lot of people that thanked me for that, and even now when I'll occasionally send an article into the FOP or whatever, I'll get comments back thanking me for things that I've done
in the past.
many years ago in the past.
Very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great deal. Good interview.
Yeah, thanks.